All right, so this week's lab in Physics 221 has to do with uh, generating images off of mirrors. And these are some kind of unusual concepts, so I'm going to do a little bit of introduction here as to what we're talking about. So here I've drawn a mirror, represented by this line, and the dashed lines mean that's the backside of the mirror. And so imagine I had an object, which in this case I'm going to represent by an X. All right, so this object will have light coming off of it, and that light is going in all directions, and clearly some of that light will hit the mirror. And as you've learned in class, is that when light strikes a mirror, a reflective surface, it will bounce off. And it will bounce off in such a way that the reflected ray will bounce off at the same angle that the incoming ray came in with when measured with respect to the normal. So let's imagine what that is. So I'm going to just pick a ray, and I'm going to send that ray off, and it's going to come in and it's going to hit the mirror. And so now I need to draw a normal line. And so if I come in and I set my ruler up so that I can draw the normal is a line that's perpendicular to the surface. Okay, so there we have the normal line from the surface. And so this is the incoming angle of the ray. Now we will have the ray will come off at that same angle. In the next little video, I'll give you a couple techniques on how to do this better. But for the moment, I'm just going to eyeball it. And so if I kind of imagine that roughly that arc is about the same, then the ray will come off at this angle. So here's the ray coming in, here's the ray coming out, here's the incident angle, and here's the reflected angle. Now in the lab, we don't want you to just eyeball these, we want you to be a little more careful. So what's going to happen? Well, here's my eye sitting out here, and this ray is coming in, and our mind is a wonderful thing, that this ray, which is collected by my eye, my brain will process as if it traveled in a straight line. And so I imagine it followed a path like this. Now I want to distinguish two things here. This is what the light is really doing up here. It's coming in and bouncing off of the surface and getting into my eye. This is what my brain thinks the light is doing, which is traveling along a path along this line right here. Now notice the light really isn't coming from behind here. Remember, it bounced off the surface. So we dash those lines that are behind the mirror because that's not where the light really comes from. And if I think about what I have here for a second, right now all my brain knows is that the light from this object, it thinks came from somewhere along this path, but because it's a single line, it doesn't know exactly where. And so to get at where it actually comes from, I need to do a second ray. And so I imagine I fire a second ray off at a slightly different angle. So I'm going to have the ray come off at this angle. It's a pretty shallow angle, so this will be a little harder to do. I draw my normal line, which is what I measured from. And then I will have my reflected ray will come off at the same angle as my incoming ray. And I know this probably looks like a bit of a mess, but there is my reflected ray. So I have the incoming ray and I have the outgoing ray. And again, my eyeball's drawn too small here, but you can imagine that my eye collects this light, and again, it thinks it traveled along a path somewhere here, which I dash in behind the mirror. And now where these 2 points intersect here is where my eye and my brain would think that the light came from this X. And so we call this the image because it's what my brain thinks happened, and this is the object because it's from where the light is really going from.